Marcia Pledger is a freelance business journalist, author, and content creator. She has been a reporter and columnist in Cleveland, sharing stories of reinvention either online, in print, or with organizations. She's the author of a book and a 10-year-old column called My Biggest Mistake and How I Fixed It, as well as a ghostwriter and editor for executives in various roles, including books. Welcome, Marcia. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thanks for asking me to be part of your podcast.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to joining us. I'm looking forward to this podcast because you bring a lot of value in some of the audience members who are listening. So let's start off with, if you don't mind, just telling me a little bit more about yourself,
Well,
who you are and what do you do as in terms of profession.
okay. Well, I've been a business journalist for my entire career. So that's a long time, like 3 decades. And so I've covered a lot of different things, but most of my time has been as a business journalist. But now one of those things I did was cover a series called Reinvention. And now I'm in the midst of my own reinvention because I just left the Cleveland Plain Dealer 4 months ago. And that's the state's largest newspaper. And while I've always done freelance on the side, always, my entire career, well, now my focus is going to be freelance business journalist. And my latest interest has been covering the marijuana industry, just because it's one of the fastest growing industries in the country. And not just our country, but look what you guys got going on.
Yeah, here in Canada, just recently legalized. So I'm not sure if that's the direction you guys are heading, but definitely staying on top of the forefront, right? And
we're a long way from that, and I think we're up to 36 states that have legal marijuana, medical marijuana. I'm sorry,
yes.
And 11 recreational. And so one of the things that I'm moving into, aside from writing for publications in that space, I'm also co-creator and developer of a local cannabis medical marijuana summit called the Ohio Cannabis Health Summit. And we just put on our first one 3 months ago. And about 500 people showed up. And so our next one is for two days, and we're expecting at least 1,500.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So before we get into your new venture, can you tell us a little bit more about, yes, 30 years of experience, and that's a lot in terms of, valuable insights, learning about a lot of local businesses and how you were able to even interview a lot of them on your column, right? So was this a career path that you chosen, or did you go to school with this in mind, or what?
Yes. So I always wanted to be a journalist since I was in high school. Nobody really knows what they want to do in high school. Well, most people don't. But so, initially I thought, I'm going to be an attorney. I watched some movie on TV, and it was somebody who was poor and couldn't afford an attorney, and then they got, sent to prison forever. And so I just knew I was going to be an attorney. And then I realized that I'm really not cut out for any kind of a job that's going to really connect me too much, because I'd probably be a drunk, my father was a social worker, for instance, and he had challenges because he cared too much. But I wanted to make a difference. So I kind of fell into journalism because I wrote for it in high school and chose that as a path in college, but I wanted to make a difference and I wanted to be able to help others. So my idea, that was the idea anyway, was to be a journalist, because you're in and out of people's lives. You're not bored ever. You're constantly learning new things. So I thought it was a good career path.
So were you at the same job for over 30 years?
No. So just because I told you that's how I thought it was going to go doesn't mean it did go that way. So my first job, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
And went to the University of Missouri, Columbia, their journalism program. And I thought I was going to do that, but life doesn't actually work that way. So I applied all across the country and ended up in Las Vegas, of all places.
Oh, wow.
And so I later covered tourism, which was the start of my business path, which is tourism and marketing, one of the hottest tourist places in the country to cover tourism. Yeah. But it didn't start out that way. I covered crime, so for probably 4 years, and it was terrible. It was gangs, shootings, and hostage situations, and just negativity of every kind that you can imagine, bank robberies, and the list goes on. And so I knew that wasn't for me. And I definitely had to get into business because there is a business side to every story. I don't care if we're talking sports or whatever. It's entertainment. It's all about the money in the end.
Wow. So your last stint at being a columnist and your local journalism, how long did you stay there for?
So I was in Las Vegas for 7 years.
Okay.
And while I worked there at the Las Vegas Review Journal, I was always doing other things. So I was also, that's when I started working as a standing contributor for Money Magazine. I did that for like 15 years, and other publications. And then I moved to Cleveland 7 years, well, actually 23 years ago. So I've only been at two main newspapers, but I've just always done a lot of freelancing on the side.
Oh, wow. So as a journalist, do you actually go into the office or is everything kind of home based?
Well, these days, for the last 5 years, I worked at home.
Okay.
Everything's changed in recent
Of
years in
course.
this digital age. Everything. So I love working from home.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're not bored because some people can't work from home. I know a girlfriend who has a marketing company with several employees, and she initially tried to work from home. It's not for her. You're doing dishes, you're doing this, that, and the other, all that. But as a journalist, you have deadlines,
Yes.
and you're not exactly bored because you're still out in the streets covering, interviewing people.
Okay.
But at the same time, I do miss the old days of journalism with a bustling newsroom and
Yeah.
everybody vibing off each other and you're sitting
Yeah.
in cubicles and blah, blah, blah. But I do love working from home.
I think that comes on a good point because depending where you are in your life, right? When you're younger, you want that social atmosphere, right? Where
Right.
you're able to socialize and go on breaks and go for coffee or lunch with colleagues. And
And you learn from
today's
each
age,
other. You can
learn from
colleagues help you out. They help you out with your ideas.
collaboration.
All
Yeah.
of it. Your editors are there right next, in the newsroom. So it is a whole different world. And you feed off each other. You feed off energy. You have meetings together, and we don't do that anymore. So it's a whole different world.
Yeah. And, last 5 years working from home, I think it's a good space if you're set out for it, right? You've already gone through that working in the office, you've learned from it. And I think once you become wiser and ready, I think you can get way more accomplished doing your own thing at home, right?
Oh,
If
for
you
sure.
have everything laid out and you plan things ahead of time, right? Because there
Right.
are a lot of distractions at home as well.
There are distractions, but quite frankly, I've spent my entire career as a deadline reporter. And so when you work for a daily newspapers, you think differently because you always got to produce. You know what I'm saying? You're always on produce mode. I mean, fortunately for me, I've had a lot of columns and standing features. So I never had that daily pressure in many, many years of cover this news story.
Yes.
So, but yeah, you're kind of trained in your head and you don't, the only thing it's not like you can relax ever when you're working from home still because you're constantly we are looking at technology.
Yeah.
I'm constantly wondering if my editor was reaching out to me or somebody's, that you're glued still.
But as long as you are focused, right? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs listening, the challenge is, there's a lot of distractions, social media, news, even ways to, deviate from your task at hand, right? Technology today could be a benefit for your business or it could be a deterrent as well, right? Because
Exactly.
it's how you have it impact your life and situation.
Exactly.
So, no, that's great.
But you know what? Everybody's so different. I mean, I've heard people who say they actually get dressed every day. And I read this one book one time about the solo entrepreneur.
Yes.
And this person was saying that they actually got in the car for a second, like as if they were going somewhere and got back out. I'm like, what? And they put on their work clothes. I'm not doing that. I might look crazy. I'm going to look crazy as heck at home. But yeah, obviously I have to dress like a reporter when I'm out. So,
Well, it works for certain people, right? So
Exactly.
whatever works, you
Exactly.
do it for your own purpose and
Yeah.
try it, right? Because as an entrepreneur, there's no one set way that's gonna fit your ideal, successful business,
Of
right?
course.
So no, that's great. So were there people that inspired you to become who you are today? Like, did you have mentors or look up to people throughout your journey?
I don't know. I think we're all different. Like most journalists, most journalists have a lot of jobs. They don't go to two companies and stay forever. I've had lots of opportunities and done lots of things and tons of different columns and all that. So I was never bored. But everybody's family situation is different. Everybody's life is different. So a lot of people go from city to city to city. That just wasn't my journey.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, I think stability says a lot, right? Today's age, I don't know if stability is the same as it used to be, right? Because
Right.
today, like all the millennials coming out of school, do they really plan on being in one job for the rest of their lives? Like,
Nobody
they're
does that anymore. Nobody. I mean, my stepson has had so many jobs. Nobody does what I just did.
because they want to discover themselves. They want to figure things out. They want to understand why they're doing what they're doing, right?
Of course, and find new opportunities and make more money. Oftentimes.
Yeah. So all that it makes, as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing, right? You need to figure out who your customers are, who your right customers are, or ideal customers, right?
Exactly.
So in terms of your career path and having it, was it changed or did you have to pivot throughout the years?
It's changed tremendously. I mean, nothing's the same anymore. I mean, you got to remember how long 30 years is, and it sounds like a lifetime ago. But when I first started my career, we didn't have cell phones, for goodness sakes. We didn't have. I mean, you can't even
Even
picture.
desktops, they didn't even have.
I mean, exactly. It's a whole different world. We didn't have
Yeah.
laptops. We didn't have cell phones.
Or email.
I mean, crazy. You can't even imagine. So everything has changed since then.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. Let's just think about covering crime. It's an app now, but I used to literally walk around with a police scanner,
Yeah.
and a walkie-talkie, if you can imagine.
Oh, wow.
Like two big things. So yeah, everything's changed since then. And in recent years, obviously, in the last several years, more and more of journalism has gone from looking forward to our Sunday used to be our bread and butter. That we look forward to our big cover stories on Sunday paper, and now you got to produce every day, and everything's digital, and nobody really finds your news by going to that medium. Generally, they're on Twitter, or they find it, or they're on social media, and that's if the story interests you, that's how you find it. And these days, journalists have to wear so many more caps. I used to consider myself a print journalist for many years. Well, that's long gone. You have to be a multimedia journalist. You have to do videos. And when you work for a union newspaper, for instance, there was a time when you would never even think to touch a camera. Now you take pictures with your cell phone all day, and you hardly ever bother photographers so much. Unless it's something that you just, it's just not your world. That darn well the professional's gonna do it better than you. But for the most part, everything's changed.
And that's, I think a lot of industries have changed, right? Just
Oh,
because
absolutely.
the advent of technology, the internet,
Exactly. We're
Google
not alone by any stretch of
access.
imagination. I've covered every industry you can imagine in business, from corporate America to manufacturing. My passion has always been small business, so we can talk about that later. But yeah, I've covered it all. And when you think about manufacturing along and technology, how it changed that business, and how you really have to have niches, and so much of technology has replaced people in that field.
Yeah. And going along the lines of like just change, I was in the yellow pages industry, so
Okay.
you being in the print industry, it's exactly the same. It had to transform to a multimedia space, or else you'd get clobbered, right? Because no one uses or ingests content the same way that they used to, right? People want things instant or pushed at them now, right? Push notifications.
Okay. So don't tempt me, because I'm a journalist, and so you got me real uncomfortable over here answering all your questions, because I'm dying to ask you some questions. When you mentioned that, my immediate thought is like, well, how did you get the yellow pages, and what's that about, and blah blah blah. But I'm gonna shut up and let you ask questions.
So in terms of like some of the challenges, so over the years, I'm sure you face hundreds of them, right? um, can you tell me a couple scenarios or some of the biggest ones that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
I mean, in my industry, I think covering news is easy. As a seasoned journalist, especially, something happens, you go cover it. Whether I don't care if you're covering entertainment, you go. It's a concert, you cover it. If it's crime, if there's a challenge there, with issue, a shooting, you cover it. If there's a news, the mayor or whatever in any city you're in, if there's news or a press conference, you cover it. That's easy. It's the who, what, when, where, why, the how, and you get two sides every story. That's easy. For me, though, my greatest challenge has been creating columns and features that get people to come back. Especially in this age where there's so many distractions, there's so much out there. And so, and even though the digital age has changed a lot in the most recent decade, for God's sakes, but, nothing's really changed. And you always are fighting for viewers and and people to watch what you're doing. And so for me, I've created several columns throughout the career, and those are been my biggest challenge.
And I guess for you, like, were there mistakes throughout the way as well? Like, I'm sure you had to endure some challenges that ventured off to things that you had to
Of
recreate.
course, I mean, it's like anything. I mean, I'll tell you some of the columns I've created. There was or standing features. I've had at one point many years ago, I had a sales and marketing column. That didn't last that long. It might have lasted a few years. I don't remember how long. It's been a long time. I've had a business etiquette column. I mean, if you think about starting something like business etiquette, it wasn't my idea, but I followed through on it. And the idea was to offer my little opinion and get a professional to weigh in on it. But the point is, when you start anything new, the obvious thing is to ask for help. And so, I remember when I reached out to an etiquette type professional, some waltz ballroom dancing guy, and just known in this community. I was telling him about my idea of starting this business etiquette column. I show up late for the interview at a 5-star restaurant. Who does that? So I called this stranger asking for help, and I show up late.
Oh, wow.
And I left my cell phone. Don't ask me how that can happen. So I can't even tell them that I'm running late. So, all you do is you get in a problem solving mode, and you just,
you apologize, and hopefully they take that.
And then you call yourself. I remember saying the least I better do is just pay for this meal so he doesn't even notice it. So I excuse myself, go into the bathroom and say, "Can I pay this meal before you bring the ticket?" He had already taken care of that. So anyway, the point is, I've done lots of columns. That was just getting started, and I love that column. But I've had a reinvention series. I had a column called "My Biggest Mistake and How I Fixed It," aimed at small business owners, and that lasted an entire decade.
Oh, wow. Yeah, like, I'm gonna get into like local business type questions, because this is our audience, right? And because you've already worked with so many and you probably interviewed so many, you probably have a lot of stories.
Oh yeah, I've interviewed more than 450 entrepreneurs for that column, but I also got a ton of rejection because it was called "My Biggest Mistake and How I Fixed It."
Of course. So in terms of advice, because a lot of these listeners are just thinking of starting to become an entrepreneur, right? What have you learned over the years that you can kind of give insight or advise some new entrepreneurs thinking of starting? What kind of advice?
I mean, when you talk to so many people, if I had to pick like 3 things for a startup entrepreneur, it would be, plan as much as possible, because there's going to be so many distractions when you're starting any new business. But be open to change. You got to be open to change and be open to, you want to plan. So if you do get an opportunity, you're not saying, "Oh, I don't have that ready. I don't have that price sheet. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have blah, blah, blah." But at the same time, you got to be open to change and be flexible. Another piece would be definitely seek help. Lots of people have great ideas, but it's not often that you're reinventing the wheel, and so why not ask somebody who's already done that? You might put a different spin on it, of course, but seek help.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they have to understand there's a huge community of people that are in the same situation as themselves, and the people that are willing to help out, everyone wants to help other people. Like, it's human nature, right? So if you close yourself from not even reaching out, you don't know what's out there, right? Because there's huge communities, there's people out there wanting to help people out, right?
I think that there's so much out there. There's obviously your local chambers of commerce, and there's small business, there's women organizations, there's all kind of organizations, young entrepreneur organizations, there's all kind of organizations, so a tech organization or this organization, so many specialty organizations out there. There's just no reason not to seek help. But the fact is, a lot of people do have different reasons for not seeking help. I remember interviewing a guy who did not take the traditional business path. He had gone to prison. He had been an alcoholic, and he ended up going into the auto detailing business. And I remember when I asked him to participate in my series, he actually made me change my whole series. I had been doing it for a few years at that point, and he made me do a whole section on where you can find help, because he had made so many mistakes because
Mm.
he didn't want people to know about his background. So he was hiring people under the table. He
Mm.
was doing it was the list of mistakes, and we all make mistakes. Every business
Yeah.
owner's gonna make mistakes, but it was a whole different level of mistakes because he didn't want people to know what he didn't know. I mean, I'm talking even one particular thing that made me laugh like mad, only because he overcame it. But he actually somehow had went from nothing to getting a big contract with an auto dealership. And somehow he had some of those cars parked on the street instead of in the lot, and they all got towed.
Oh,
Imagine telling your customer, your first big customer, I might add, that
wow.
you don't have their freaking cars, you
Oh,
know? And so the first thing, first thing you want to do is you try to fix it without telling the
of
customer, right?
course, of course.
Well, guess what? It's not in your name, so you can't get it. So you have to tell the customer. Long story short, he got out of that. And I know this is going to be hard to believe, but he actually won that customer back over.
Wow.
And he was like, yes, of course, he apologized profusely. And yes, they said, you idiot, we're never going to do business with you again. But in the end, he was like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes to get your business back. I'm going to do your cars for free for a while. I'm going to do whatever. And he got them back. So, yeah. So I guess my point is that there's a different levels of mistakes, and people have different reasons for not wanting to share, because everybody doesn't come from the straight path of going to college and then they start their business or having family support or whatever.
So I think that's a really good note because, at the beginning, there's struggles and a
Yeah,
lot of people teach you like fake it until you make it kind of thing. I'm
yeah,
more about being transparent and do the honest thing, tell
right,
people the truth because every time you start lying, you dig yourself deeper and
absolutely,
it's gonna take a lot longer to win them over when they find out that you've been lying, right? So it,
absolutely.
it might as well start off by being transparent and honest and let them know what really happened and what your struggles really are and be vulnerable. And I think that's so critical advice wise, right? As a small business
Being
owner.
vulnerable is key, and also seeking help. And when I say seek help, there's so not just organizations out there, but I've had people to share just getting the right accountant, the right lawyer, the right whatever, and if you're in retail, it would help if you find an accountant who's dealt with retail businesses, because just because you're an accountant doesn't mean you're the right person for that particular business.
Exactly.
So they won't know the loopholes or the things you should be looking for in inventory. I mean, there's so many areas, but if you just try to wing it, I got this, I got this experience coming from corporate America in this realm. My sister's got this other experience coming from retail. We got this business down.
Yeah.
And guess what? You got a couple things down, but you need help still.
So that's only a couple scenarios, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of groups like you mentioned, not just localized, but even online today. Like there's
Oh yeah.
forum groups.
But today is a whole new day.
There's a lot of like even books or podcasts or videos,
Absolutely.
right? Like all these information that was never there 10 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
They're
It's a
now
whole new
accessible.
day.
So that's why like there's things at your disposal as an entrepreneur that were never even thought of like 30 years ago because 30 years
Absolutely.
ago
And
you would have to
you're
go to
tempting
school.
me again. You're tempting me because I want to ask you why you started this podcast a year ago. I want to know all your business, but you're tempting me because I'm not used to being on this other side here. But you could answer that right quick. Why did you start your podcast?
It's really to give back, right? To
Okay.
educate and impact more people to become successful because there's so many people that fail and struggle and they don't connect with people, right? So I want to let people know I made mistakes. I struggled. I, I always had a dream, right?
Okay.
And for me, it's more now I'm living my dream. I'm actually very grateful and I want to give things back, pay it forward kind of thing.
I love it.
So in terms of tips, right? I know you basically gave some advice. I know you're starting your own business as well, right? Like you kind of are starting your cannabis um,
Yeah.
forum and events. What have you been doing differently, knowing all this information? Like, can
Well,
you
I'm just
share
getting
some
started,
insight?
and I'm going to conferences right now,
Okay.
and learning from other people, because you got to start from somewhere. There's nothing, when you're trying to get into anything new, the first step is to be around people who are doing what you want to do.
Yep.
And so that's kind of my step. And then start networking again. When you are a journalist, for as long as I've been a journalist, I'm used to people coming to me. I'm used to people saying, hey, write about my story, blah blah blah. Well, now and you're wearing a whole different hat, and now I'm like, wow, I'm going to be helping to put on this event. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to ask these journalist type folks to ask me for some to be part to promote my event. What the heck? Anyway, so I'm on the other side.
No, it's great. I mean, I can definitely learn quite a bit from you because I'm starting to put on local events just to kind of help people out, right? But again, I never really intended to, put on live events, right? Like my whole
Right.
purpose of doing live events was to practice public speaking.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And then, for me, it's like, I'm not making a business out of it. It's really for me to try to learn something new, like as a skill set,
Absolutely.
get better. Right. And as long as I'm enjoying the whole path of trying something different and I'm still, waking up every day and, happy and passionate, I think
Absolutely.
that's, something that people have to realize, like, it's not always about the money, right? Whatever
No.
you do, there's different purposes in life.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I'm going to this in terms of learning. I just left 4 months ago, and so I went to a conference in New York, a major cannabis conference then, and I'm going back to New York next month for one aimed at the media and it's only their second area because it's such a new industry.
Oh, wow.
About people covering that industry. But yeah, it's your purpose can't be just about making money. I mean, even with this expo we're doing, our reason for doing it is new in Ohio, and there's not enough information out there. And so initially we plan to do just consumers and workshops all day with consumers. And yeah, we have vendors, but the whole goal was to get information out there. And then we only threw in one business panel with investors and cultivators and blah, blah, blah. And it was when you don't even promote something like that and you got more than 100-something people standing in a room because it was supposed to end at 4 and we started that at 4:30. And when people are willing to stick around on a Saturday, that means you got something. So that's why we're adding a whole different day just on business.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you listen to the audience, right? And what they tell you, right? At the end.
Absolutely. Well, people were asking about it. And that's, I mean, if you think about, I think about all the mistakes I've written about. And it's interesting because everybody makes mistakes. Yeah. But one big mistake sometimes is that when some people are so focused on what they want to do, this is my idea, this is my service, this is all it's going to be, this is my product, and this is how it's going to go down. But if you don't listen to your possible customers or your future customers, the customers out there, and you just could make some tweaks, then maybe we could be a win-win. Yeah. and I think there's that old saying about follow your passion and money will come. I believe that. Yeah.
So you're in a different situation because you've worked for many years and you saved up a chunk to start your own business. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that are just starting a business without even any money. So what kind of advice can you give?
I say anything. I'm gonna need a loan from you. What are you talking about?
No, but I mean, like going to events and even being comfortable networking, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they might not even be comfortable talking to others, right?
Well, you're right. Networking is key in anything. I mean, I literally have not networked in a long time. And so I've just started like in the last couple of weeks doing intentional networking, and it's been great, But I got to tell you, from what I've learned throughout the years of watching others and networking and writing a column called my business etiquette column, for instance, you can mess up with networking. I mean, you can waste a lot of time going to these networking groups that are not the right fit for you, and you can waste time. But I think another mistake that people make is that when it's all about you, you're not going to do anything. I don't think you should network with saying, "Ooh, me. This is what I need," But if you go in with the intention of, listening to that person at this particular networking event, and then if you immediately try to give back, trust me, it's going to come back to you when you need.
That's a great point.
And the other thing I got to tell you about networking that's interesting to me is that I think that, I don't know, we first impressions, right or wrong, we all make them, right? By the time from the moment someone walks in the room, by the way someone talks, by the way they look, we all make judgments, right or wrong, right? And sometimes we make bad impressions. I think one, and it goes back to the mistake, fixing it. but I think of one particular incident where the small business consultant was sharing with me how he was trying to help a new young entrepreneur in a family business. And he thought enough of this young man to invite him on a golf course with a CEO of a bank and two other high level individuals. So let me get this straight. Why did this knucklehead go out there and hit his shot every time and get right back on his technology? Back on the phone, texting and all that, ignoring this amazing opportunity. 4 hours on a golf course with the CEO of a bank. That's called a screw up. You know, how do you fix something like that?
Yeah.
First of all, he didn't even realize. First of all, the person who invited him was just mortified and humiliated and embarrassed. You know, and hopefully he did tell him about himself, because you need to try to fix that one. You know, because sometimes you just don't know with age. I'm not saying you could be young and be way more intelligent than someone 50 or 60. I'm not saying that. It's not about age, but sometimes I'm just saying with this technology world, it drives me crazy. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. And I think, years of experience, right? And you dealing with so many people and talking to business owners and success stories, failures, that says a lot versus someone that's just starting off, right? They go into these networking events thinking to sell or win a customer over, when you should be giving, right? Or building relationships. Like when I first started doing networking, my intention was to connect with one or two individuals and
Right.
help them out, right?
Absolutely.
Get to know them and build solid relationships with one or two people, right?
I
And
love it.
that's it, right?
That's great, as opposed to thinking, oh, I'm gonna get 10 people from here.
Exactly, right? It's not realistic goals, right? Like, how do you go in even talking to 10 people? There's hundreds of people there,
Absolutely.
right? And you need to feel, get to know them too, right? And kind of build that relationship that way. So
Well, I got to give you, on that note, I got to share a quick story. You know, there's in your world, technology, there's a guy who I know who has a company. They do, what do you call the data backup stuff?
yeah,
You know,
redundancy, backup storage, or
exactly that type of technology company. Anyway, I remember he was sharing with me how I was telling him that I wanted to. I think that business etiquette in this digital age is so important, and people forget about the effects of the personal handwritten note. And we were just having a cocktail, and I don't remember how this even came up, but believe it or not, he actually could vibe with me, because he was like, Marcia, I've been sending out handwritten notes for so long. Do you know how much business has gotten me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'll give you an example. So if, say you go to this 40 under 40 event,
yep,
the 40 top people in your city who are doing the darn thing, whatever. He gave me an example. I will do my best at the beginning of that event to make as many of them as possible. And then when I send a note afterwards, and if I can remember one thing about them, I'll include it. But either way, I always send them a note. Hey, it was great meeting you at the 40 under 40. I was one of the 40, whatever. Best wishes to you. That's it. If I can ever do anything to help you, let me know. He never, ever asks for anything. He just says, if I can ever help you, let me know. He said, do you know how much business, it might not happen overnight, it might be a year from now, but people remember that, because the art of the handwritten note in this age is lost. And so if you think about it, we all get our bills in the mail, but think about how excited you are if something that looks like a card actually comes. It's just a different day. So no one takes the time who does that anymore, Harley. I got this big guy in this area told me that it made me happy, because he said he kept it on his note, and he's all into social media. He's made a huge business out of social media. He's a consulting firm, but he's big time in social media. But it warmed my heart that he said he kept that handwritten note that I sent him, congratulating him on his success, on his desk, because no one does that anymore.
And you got to differentiate yourself, right? Like everyone that's emailing and doing ads and this and that, well, they're going to get lost with everything else.
And we all have to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I do send thank you notes all the time too, but with email, of course. It's effective, it's fast, and it's hard to make yourself sit down and write a note. It really is. But it's just a suggestion.
No, it's great, right? Because a lot of people come in to an event or anything wanting to get business out of it. You got to think differently, right? And
absolutely.
And by giving or helping others, that's where you don't reap the benefits right away, but eventually they'll remember you, and that's all that matters, right? It's all about hopefully connecting with someone. So next question I have is, what drove you to become who you are? Like, I know over the years you've had a lot of different, only two major jobs, but you've
Yeah.
had a lot of columns and you've become a journalist. What really pushed you? Like, what was your purpose or passion over the years?
I really do just enjoy helping people. I really do. And I mean, yes, you have to, with news, you have to do those basic news stories all the time, of course. This person opened this door, what this person
Yeah,
did,
yeah,
this, blah, blah, blah. But when you can write something that touches someone else
yeah,
and inspires someone else to do follow their own dream,
yeah.
or lets people know about this person that in the community and no one knew they were doing this great thing, because, and maybe that person didn't even want attention, that gets me excited. I love sharing good news, basically. And so even with my column, my biggest mistake and how I fixed it, that lasted so long. It lasted until 6 years ago when I killed it because I needed a change after talking to almost 500 people, doing it. And I took a break, a mid-career break, and mid-career sabbatical at the University of Michigan for a year off and came back. But anyway, I guess my point is that in writing that feature, every last one of those stories, while they shared a mistake, they all had happy endings. And so that's what drives me. I'm so grateful for everyone who shared their vulnerabilities, because it is not easy to ask someone to share what's your biggest mistake and how did you fix it. It's just not easy. People worry about being judged, and the only thing they get out of this, is helping someone else. That's it. I'm not giving me money. I'm not giving anything, So that's it, because everybody wants to talk about success. Everybody. And I want to hear about your success too. But I also want to know about those failures that led to those success.
And every entrepreneur, every business owner has a lot of failures, and they have to pivot and they have to learn from it, because if you delve on those mistakes and failures, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to continue your business, right? Like,
absolutely. You can't focus on being down, but you
exactly.
got to get back up. But if you think about how many articles you read or how many interviews you've heard, and that person's on top. I mean, obviously they must be on top for you to want to talk to them, for some reason, unless it's a bad story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in business, no one's going to just go say, oh, I hear you haven't made any sales. Let me go interview you. You know what I'm saying? I hear you that you're not even paying your rent. Let me interview you. No one's doing that, right?
Yeah.
So we're people who interview people who are successful already. But I really firmly believe that people turn off when they're happy for that person, unless you're just a total hater. But they tune out because they're like, okay, good for them, good for him or her. But I could never see myself there.
But I think, being vulnerable and connecting with your audience, right? And I think everyone's gonna share a mistake, and there's gonna be others that have gone through or are going through the same situation, right? And by voicing it out or even helping one other person out, it's gonna make one person's difference, right?
Absolutely.
And they won't make that mistake. And I think that's impactful. So don't go after like the biggest, or a huge group of hundreds or thousands of people that you can impact. Start small.
Absolutely.
You have to start small, right?
Absolutely.
So as a small business owner, I love that, right? Like, just be vulnerable. It's great. So in terms of like over the years, what motivates you to get up every day doing what you're doing, and what drives you? Like, and now that you're following this new career path, what excites you today?
I mean, that does excite me. Getting into this space is interesting to me just because it is one of the fastest growing industries in the country right now, and in other countries. And it's globally. It's global. It is. There's so many stories to be told. Everything from people incarcerated who should not be incarcerated. Because so many people are making money out now off of this. And to how are people being helped by marijuana? How are people, there's just tons of stories, and so I just want to know, and what are the opportunities for people, whether, if they're trying to do a career reinvention and pivoting, because the fact is, with a new industry, it's all about reinvention. Everybody's reinventing, whether they had to have parlayed their accounting experience, their marketing experience, their gardening experience, or whatever. It's just simply a new industry, and there's so many opportunities, whether you're an ancillary business like Scott's Miracle Grow, which is big time into that industry with the hydroponics, because maybe the home and garden might be tapped out. It's probably, you can only go so far with that, but there's this whole big old industry growing, and now this soil company is able to move forward and take advantage of that and grow from there. Or maybe this small entrepreneur who just has this idea to make a better package for the marijuana, whether it's for a small individual use or for, plastic bag, or for the big drums that are made in cultivation. There's 50 million stories out there. And so, and because it's a new industry, I just want to be part of that growing industry.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you this as well, because you've hosted 500 people locally in a couple months, right? At your last event.
Yeah.
What did you have to do to drum up that many people that are interested in this topic to get them?
Well, we were winging it big time, I must say, but because we only had a few months, we did that in 3 months, and so that's why we're very optimistic that we can triple that with actually a whole year of planning. Because if you can get that in a few months, just by using a lot of social media and talking to people and getting the right people involved, so they can share with their audiences, and that's kind of how that happened. And the fact is that you got to have something of interest. If this is
a topic that was
obviously, I mean, I don't care how much social media you do if nobody gives a cookie. You know what I'm saying? But if it's something that people are curious about and they want to know, well, how do you get a marijuana card? Well, how do you do this? Well, how do you do that? And what are the opportunities? Well, hey, I'm a baker. You know what? There's a speaker who's talking about baking and edibles and stuff. You have to hit people from different angles. And see what makes you, what would interest you, what would make you get up and pay a little money and to get some information
to learn a little bit more. So you obviously network with a lot of influencers or people with an audience of people in your tribe, right? People that are interested in that topic, as well as social media,
right,
to get people on board.
Gotcha. Right. And it's like anything, you always got to start with some key influencers. I mean, our next conference, we're hoping to get a big name to draw,
as a keynote speaker or someone.
Yeah, exactly. You need, we'll have more time to plan. But it's like anything, you gotta see, get outside of yourself and see and listen to people. And look at what worked and what didn't work. How we could do things better next time.
No, it's great. It's great insight. And then aside from business, so what are some of the other pillars that kind of has molded you to become who you are? Like, was there a lot of influencers like within your family, personal or business?
I mean, it's like anything. Business is just part of your world. It's a big part of all of our worlds. But for me, I'm going through a lot of change on every front. I went through a divorce in the last year. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I've got two grown stepchildren, who have children. I'm in a different phase of reinventing, and I'm just enjoying family and thinking about community and ways I can give back. Because I'm at a different stage, I'm ready to get back with the community, through my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, and get back active with them and give back in different ways. So yeah, there's some things that are interested in me.
And even life, like myself, I'm a father of a 4-year-old, right? So for me, it's more, my focus is really to bring him up to speed and, mold him or help him appreciate what life is all about, right? So there's a lot of things I'm learning as well on the fly as a parent, right? But it's a lot of fun. So,
and it makes you smile at the end of your day. You can have the worst day, best day, and it's about a 4-year-old baby boy who just don't care about none of that. He don't have no bills yet. He just got love and happiness.
Exactly. But that's how life should be, right? Yeah. So that's why, that now I think about how he lives. That's what you should always live like, right? Because he's
absolutely
all the time. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I love my job. I love my tribe. I love my staff. I love my clients, but I also love whoever I'm trying to impact, right? And help, because I do give back now. I mentor a lot of business owners, just things that actually bring a big smile to me. I think that's worth it, right?
I mean, exactly. I listen to a lot of positive music. We all do what we do. Some people listen to motivational speakers. I love music, and
Yeah.
I keep these positive expressions around. I have a big picture frame that says, "My goal is to create a life I don't need a vacation from."
Yeah, exactly. So when you go to work, but it's not really work and it's more like
Right.
play and you're just enjoying what you're doing, that's where you're at the right, company or job or business that you've built, whatever it is. It's like it doesn't feel like work.
Absolutely. I mean, and Lord knows we're gonna make some mistakes trying to get to that point, but
It's
as long as we
fine.
get back up, try it again.
Yeah.
Keep it moving.
And when you do feel like it is a business or you
Yeah,
feel like it is something more, like it's not
it's
bringing you
not
happiness.
enjoyable. Then it's time to pivot.
Exactly. And pivoting is so critical. As a small business owner, that's one of the things that I've always done and I always talk about as well, right? Because your audience may change. You may want to know, like you'll learn from your customers and you may want to change directions because you may want to offer new services or go into different markets or whatever it may be, right? So
I
it's
mean, you know what? Exactly. And with the hundreds of people that I've interviewed for my column, My Biggest Mistake and How I Fixed It, and other in my reinvention series, the biggest takeaway from me is that, the only thing constant is change. And it sounds like such a cliche, but it's so true.
yeah, and changing and being vulnerable and
It's not
learning.
easy.
Well, being an entrepreneur is not easy, right? Like,
No way.
and even holding a job for 30 years or 15 years is not easy, right? In today's world, a couple years is challenging, especially what's going on. Like, life. There's so much uncertainty in this world today, right? You don't
Right.
know what's gonna happen. You don't know where you're gonna get paid, right?
Right.
So being an entrepreneur, at least you have some control in
Yeah.
terms of how
Well,
to
you have
go.
some control as long as you don't do stuff like get comfortable with one big client and that
Oh yes,
takes over your whole life. And
yes,
next thing you know,
they own you.
you basically are an employee
An
until
employee of that one
you're an
customer. Yes,
entrepreneur. But
yes,
you are actually can be an employee for that company. So you have to keep it, make sure you remember those things like, how did I get here? I know this is
yeah,
what I asked for, but
yeah,
maybe I need to have a couple more other clients. You need to have that diverse portfolio because otherwise I don't want to look up and one day they cancel me and I'm out, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So
All these things you'll learn, right, as an
yeah,
entrepreneur. And
exactly.
I'm so grateful. At least you're speaking about all these mistakes and things you've heard from other business owners because there's so many problems out there that people
I
endure,
just think
right?
it's so important. It makes being vulnerable because I'm telling you, I remember going to just in May when I was in New York at this big cannabis conference, and it was huge. It was like 275 vendors, 3 days of workshops, and it was great. But there was I can't recall the name of the company at the moment, but is from in your world in Canada, and in Canada, that particular company was talking about how he had given he had his business model entailed giving stock to every single employee at the company.
Mm,
But he talked about all these successes, and it was just, and he had this standing room only crowd, people flowing outside because he was this big name. But what hit me the most was that he shared a few of those mistakes.
mm,
Like using the machine with real weed and ruining it, instead of some other product, and it was just funny stuff. But no one shares those kind of things, and that's what motivates the person who's just starting or the person who's struggling, who's gotten at the growth phase, or dealing with all kind of other challenges, whether it's working with family or friends, and they're the obvious target because they're free or young, or you can pay them a little less when you're just starting out, but they can also kill you. But anyway, or having a bad partner, because that can also kill a business real quick. So yeah, so that, I guess my point is that anytime anyone is willing to share vulnerabilities, share something that they learned, that they fell down and it was not easy, but somehow picked themselves back up, it just makes me smile because it just is like, wow, there's hope out there.
and it's real, right? So they're
Yeah,
genuine and authentic, right?
absolutely.
Because in reality, every successful person has failed in multiple careers or multiple like
every major corporation has failed. And I think that people forget that while your goal may not be to be some major corporation, the fact is every corporation started as a small business. You had to start somewhere. I mean, I think about the co-founder of Office Max, who wrote the foreword to my book. He started out with one store in Cleveland, Ohio, and he built it up to an international company with 1,100 stores. Wow. But the fact is, I mean, when the stories that he shares, and the reason he was willing to write a preface to whatever you call it for the book, is because might not be your goal to be that big ever, or maybe not even to get outside of your community, or maybe not do sales online. I don't know what your goal is, but you always have to start small. You have to start somewhere. And so when anyone, so it warms my heart when people, whether you're a small entrepreneur or a major force like him, who has, sold that company and moved on to many more adventures since then, to give back. I mean, I love it. It makes me happy.
Yeah. And I think you bring on a really good point, because a lot of people are stuck up on being perfect or starting a company knowing exactly everything. But my take on it is go out and do something about it and start it and make mistakes. At least you're already out there and you're ahead of the curve by trying to learn and make mistakes and get up and, figure things out and pivot and make changes and go out and try to understand who your customers are and provide better service and all that other stuff, right?
Well, now I'm gonna have to be taking all that advice I've heard from 50 million people, including you, and I'm gonna have to actually do that.
No, it's great.
It's not easy, because speaking of which, I was like, oh Lord, my site, I gotta work on that. I gotta do this, that.
We could talk about that on the side. But yeah, like for us, I really want to thank you so much. You've brought a lot of good, stories and insight because of all the years of experience, right? So I want to thank you for giving this opportunity and taking up some of your time to be on our podcast show. So where can listeners go to learn more about your business?
To me. Thank you so much.
Oh, not a problem. So where can our listeners go out to learn more about your business and some of the...
My name is Marcia Pledger, Marcia, and my last name is Pledger, Pledger. So any of my social media is just under that, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and even my website would be marciapledger.com. And so that's all under just my name, but also what our newest project is the Ohio Cannabis Health Summit. So it's just, that's what it is, OhioCannabisHealthSummit.com.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate this. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, they can definitely contact Marcia on her social media page or website.
Yay!
Thanks a lot, Marcia.
All right. You take care. I'm coming to visit you in Toronto.
Definitely.
All right. Bye-bye.